Hi, viewers. Welcome back to another amazing story. Today, we have a story of a girl named Emma who turned her life upside down with hard work on YouTube, and you can too. Her success was hard-earned with lots of trial and error. Watch this video so you can avoid these errors and find your own success. Or maybe tell your grandchildren to follow her footsteps. Stick till the end. You will love it.
My name is Emma, and for the longest time, I was what the internet would generously call a serial content creator, and what my mother would less generously call a girl who needs to get a real job. I was 23 years old, living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Columbus, Ohio that smelled faintly of someone else's cigarettes and permanently of mold that had never once been acknowledged by our landlord, Gary. Gary believed that if you ignored a problem long enough, it simply became part of the apartment's character. The cracked bathroom tile? Character. The heater that only worked when it felt like it? Character. The mouse that Emma from next door had named Gerald and begun leaving crumbs out for? Honestly, that one was more on us. The apartment was shared with my roommate Stacy, who was perfectly fine in theory, but in practice was the kind of person who left passive-aggressive sticky notes on the fridge and then acted wounded when you pointed out which note was hers. She had one sticky note that simply read, "Some of us wash our bowls." It had been there for 6 months. I had washed every bowl in that apartment. I am still not sure what the bowl incident was about.
But the apartment, the mold, Gerald the mouse, Stacy's sticky notes, all of that was the backdrop. The real story is what was happening on my laptop screen. Because between 2021 and the spring of 2023, I started and abandoned no fewer than 7 YouTube channels. 7. I know. Even as I type that number, I feel the ghost of my bank account weeping quietly. Let me give you the full, humbling tour. Channel 1, Emma Eats Everything. This one sounds charming in theory. Food content is huge. Mr. Beast does food stuff. Gordon Ramsay has a channel. People love watching other people eat. It's practically a biological imperative. So 22-year-old Emma, armed with a Canon M50 she'd bought on a payment plan and a ring light that flickered exactly like a horror movie set, decided she was going to be a food creator. The problem? I am, at best, a mediocre cook. I thought this would be relatable. It was not. My first video was a 20-minute disaster in which I attempted to make homemade pasta from scratch and ended up with something the texture of wet cardboard. I thought it was funny. The algorithm thought it deserved 73 views. 11 of which were me watching it back. The channel died after 8 videos, including one where I tried to make croissants and my smoke alarm appeared on camera 3 times.
Ah, yes, the study with me genre. Very popular, very calming, very in demand from students wanting someone to be quietly productive alongside them. I filmed myself studying at my desk for 2 hours, put on some lo-fi music, and uploaded it. It got 200 views. That was actually my best performing content for a long time, which tells you something. The problem was I wasn't actually studying. I was scrolling Reddit with my phone angled carefully off screen. This felt unsustainable both ethically and practically. Channel 3, Emma's Plant Corner, a channel about houseplants. I had 3 plants at the time. One was dying. Another died during filming of the second video. The third, a little succulent named Hector, survived, but I'd already deleted the channel by then. Hector is still alive today, and I consider him my greatest success from that era. Channel 4, Minimalist Living with Emma. This is genuinely embarrassing because my room at that time looked like a secondhand store had sneezed. I owned approximately 10,000 things. I made 3 videos about owning fewer things while surrounded by towers of books, 2 unused yoga mats, and what I can only describe as a pile of might need this someday objects. The cognitive dissonance was architectural. Channel 5, True Crime Explained. Okay, this one I actually loved, and it kills me that it didn't work. I am obsessed with true crime. I have been since I was a kid watching those late-night documentary specials with my grandmother, both of us eating popcorn and making very irresponsible conclusions about criminal psychology. The problem with the true crime space is that it is absolutely stacked with incredible creators. And my production quality at that point, I was recording in my closet, which had about the acoustic quality of a cardboard box, was not quite matching the energy of the content. I made 9 videos. I was genuinely proud of them. They averaged about 400 views. I cried a little when I hit the delete button. Channel 6, Emma's Fitness Journey. 3 videos. 3! The first was me doing a beginner workout and narrating it. The second was me explaining my fitness goals. The third was me explaining why I hadn't done any fitness in 2 weeks. Then I ate an entire sleeve of Oreos and the channel quietly ceased to exist.
Channel 7, Personal Finance for Broke Girls. This one actually hurt because I put real work into it. I researched, I made little graphics, I talked about budgeting and emergency funds and the absolute crime of overdraft fees. 6 videos. My best one got 1,200 views, but I burned out. I was working a part-time retail job at the time and coming home to script, film, edit, and thumbnail a personal finance video when I was too exhausted to think straight felt like being asked to run a marathon in concrete shoes. 7 channels, 2 years, somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 videos total. And to show for it, maybe $80 in combined ad revenue across all of them, most of which came from that one personal finance video, and a crippling sense that maybe the universe was trying to tell me something.
Part 2. The apartment, the noise, and the thing I didn't want to talk about. Here's the part of the story where I have to talk about something I spent a long time not wanting to talk about. The apartment I lived in wasn't just uncomfortable because of the mold and the sticky notes. It was uncomfortable because of the environment. Not physically. I mean the atmosphere, the weight of it. Stacy was fine, like I said, but the problem wasn't Stacy exactly. The problem was a combination of things that I had slowly, quietly been normalizing over 2 years of living there. The friend group drama that came through the apartment like weather, the way certain people made me feel small when I talked about my YouTube ambitions, the specific cruelty of being laughed at, gently, with plausible deniability, by people who were supposed to support you. "You're still doing the YouTube thing?" was a sentence I heard more times than I can count, always with that particular inflection. That tiny pause before thing, like the word itself was in quotation marks. There was a guy in our extended social circle. I'll call him Derek, because that is genuinely his name and he doesn't deserve the anonymity of a pseudonym, who once told me at a party, in front of approximately 8 people, that he'd looked at my channel and that I had a good personality for someone who clearly doesn't know what they're doing. He said it like a compliment. He smiled when he said it. Everyone laughed because the framing was just ambiguous enough to give them cover. I laughed too. I'm not proud of that. But I laughed because I had gotten very good at that particular performance. The self-deprecating laugh that says, "Yeah, you're right, I know, isn't it funny?" When what it actually means is, "Please stop, please stop, please stop."
I want to be honest about this because I think there are a lot of Emmas out there, and the YouTube success story you usually hear is the triumphant version with the big reveal and the numbers and the thumbnail of someone with their mouth open pointing at a stack of money. And that's great. I love that energy. But the part they often skip is the part where you're sitting on a moldy apartment floor at midnight, questioning whether you're delusional, and someone in your life is very effectively helping you believe that you might be. It was around November of 2022 that I made a decision. Not a dramatic decision. I didn't flip a table or give a speech or walk out into the rain looking cinematic. I just decided, very quietly and very privately, that I was going to try one more time. And that this time, I wasn't going to ask anyone's opinion about it. Not Stacy, not Derek, not the group chat that had approximately 17 opinions about everything, not my mother, who loved me very much, but who had recently started sending me job listings for dental office receptionists as a form of love language. Not anyone. Just me and my laptop and whatever was left of my willingness to keep trying. Part 3. The channel I almost didn't start. The idea for the new channel came from a genuinely embarrassing place. I was having a terrible week. The retail job had been soul-crushing in a very specific way that only people who have worked retail during the holiday season can understand. I was broke. I had just gotten a text from Derek that was so casually dismissive, I had stared at it for 10 minutes trying to figure out if I was overreacting, which is always a sign that you are very much not overreacting. I was sitting on my bed at 11:30 at night eating microwave mac and cheese out of the pot because I couldn't be bothered to find a bowl, and I was angry. Not sad angry, not crying angry, just livid, low-grade, exhausted angry. The kind of angry where you want to say all the things you've been carefully not saying. So I opened my laptop, and I just started talking. I didn't plan it, I didn't script it, I didn't set up lighting or check my background or worry about whether my hair looked good. I just opened the camera app, pressed record, and started telling the story of my worst week. I talked about the retail job. I talked about Derek and the party. I talked about the 7 failed channels. I talked about feeling like I was constantly auditioning for a life I wasn't sure I was allowed to have. I talked for 22 minutes without stopping. And then I stopped. And I sat there. And I thought, well, that felt good. I didn't upload it that night. I watched it back the next morning with the particular masochistic energy of someone reading their own diary entry from 3 years ago. Cringy, a little raw, but also undeniably real. The camera had caught something in that footage that none of my other 60-something videos had ever managed to catch. Some quality of being genuinely, uncomplicatedly present. I wasn't performing anything. I wasn't doing a bit. I wasn't following a niche content strategy template I'd found on a YouTube creator forum. I was just there. I uploaded it on a Sunday evening with almost no title thought and a thumbnail I made in Canva in about 8 minutes. I called the channel something simple. Emma. Honestly. And then I did not check the analytics for 3 days because honestly, I couldn't take another disappointment. Part 4. What happened when I wasn't looking? When I finally opened YouTube Studio on that Wednesday, I was standing in the break room at work in my retail uniform, eating a granola bar, fully prepared to see my usual numbers. Maybe 100 views if I was lucky, a handful of watch time minutes, the bleak algorithmic silence that had become familiar as wallpaper. The video had 11,400 views. I stood very still for a moment. I thought, the app is broken. Then I thought, no, wait. Then I dropped my granola bar. The comments section was the thing that undid me because it wasn't what I expected. I'd expected the internet to be the internet, the occasional kind stranger, a lot of indifference, maybe a troll or two for flavor. What I found instead was something that felt almost bewilderingly human. People were writing paragraphs. People were saying, this is me. This is exactly me. I have been this person. I am this person right now. Someone wrote, I have 7 abandoned Notion pages where I tried to plan 7 different career pivots and I have never felt so seen. Someone else wrote, the Derek at the party thing made me actually gasp out loud. A third person wrote, please keep making these, please. I went back to work and I stocked shelves for 4 hours and I was crying about 40% of the time, which I was able to conceal by blaming seasonal allergies to a coworker named Brad who absolutely did not believe me. That was the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, I uploaded 3 more videos in the same vein. I talked about what it felt like to want something badly and be afraid to say so out loud. I talked about the specific loneliness of living somewhere that doesn't feel like home. I talked about the 7 failed channels in full, honest, slightly self-mocking detail, and that video hit 80,000 views in 9 days. I remember the exact moment it crossed 80,000 because I was sitting at my desk at 3 in the morning and I made a sound that can only be described as a honk. Stacy knocked on my door to ask if I was okay. I said yes. I was better than okay. Part 5. The mechanics of the money. Because you want to know. Okay, let me be real with you about how the money actually worked, because I think this part is important and the YouTube success story genre tends to be frustratingly vague about it in a way that isn't actually helpful to anyone. The $10,000 did not happen overnight. It happened over about 6 months, from that first viral video to the point where I could look at my bank account and see a number with 4 zeros that I had put there myself. Here's how it broke down. AdSense revenue. This was the first thing that started moving. When your video hits those kinds of view counts, and more importantly, when your watch time and audience retention are strong, which mine were, because people were apparently watching my meandering 20-minute emotional unloading sessions all the way through, which I still find remarkable and deeply touching. The ad revenue starts to accumulate in a way that looks like magic if you've never seen it before. My first month of real monetization brought in around $400. My second month, with more videos and a growing subscriber base that had hit 8,000, brought in closer to $900. By month 4, I was pulling roughly $1,800 to $2,200 per month from AdSense alone.
Brand partnerships. This came faster than I expected, and from a direction I didn't anticipate. I'd assumed that if I ever got a brand deal, it would be from some big corporate entity. Instead, my first partnership was with a small company that made digital planners and journaling templates, perfectly aligned with my audience of people who were also, apparently, trying to organize their chaotic life plans in Google Docs at midnight. They found me through my 7 failed channels video and offered me a flat fee of $600 for a mention in one video. I almost fell out of my chair. I said yes.
The integration was natural because I genuinely used their product and had talked about journaling in a previous video. By month 5, I had 2 ongoing brand partnerships and 1 one-time collaboration. Combined income from partnerships that month, approximately $2,400. Membership and community. Around month 4, I opened a channel membership at a very low price point, just a few dollars a month for what I called the Honestly Club. I want to be clear, I did not expect this to perform. I thought maybe 50 people would join. By the end of month 6, I had over 400 members. That was another consistent income stream, small but steady. Affiliate links. I mentioned a few products naturally over the course of my videos, a specific journal I liked, a budgeting app I'd started using, some basic camera equipment. Nothing aggressive or salesy. The cumulative affiliate revenue over 6 months was around $600. Add it all up, account for the uneven distribution of when things started growing, and by the time month 6 closed out, I had crossed the $10,000 mark in total YouTube-related income. I had a screenshot of the exact moment. It's still my phone wallpaper. I look at it when I'm having a bad day.
Part 6. The things nobody tells you will be hard. I want to stay honest with you because the whole point of Emma Honestly was that I don't do the polished version. So here's the stuff that was genuinely difficult. The emotional exposure is real. When you make content about your actual life, your actual fears, your actual embarrassments, your actual complicated feelings about the people around you, you are handing strangers a version of yourself that is very undefended. Most of the time, the response is beautiful. Sometimes it isn't. I had a period around month 3 where someone left a comment that was so specifically cruel, not generic internet rude, but weirdly targeted and personal in a way that suggested they had watched quite a bit of my content before deciding to weaponize it, and I spent about 3 days not wanting to film anything. That passed, but I want to be honest that it happened. The algorithm is not your friend, it's your landlord. It can be generous. It can also decide for mysterious reasons on a Tuesday that it simply is not going to recommend your content today. There were weeks where my numbers were fantastic and I felt like I'd cracked some secret code. There were weeks where they were inexplicably flat, and I had to remind myself that the code does not stay cracked. You have to keep making things even when the numbers are discouraging, which means you have to find a reason to make them that isn't just the numbers. People you know will find the channel. This was something I had not fully prepared for. I had been careful not to tell anyone in my physical life about the channel, not Stacy, not the retail job people, absolutely not Derek. But the internet is not a sealed room, and around month 2, I got a text from an acquaintance that simply said, "Is that your YouTube channel?" It was. I said yes. I held my phone with slightly trembling hands waiting for the response. She said, "I showed my sister and we both cried at your 7 failures video. We think you're amazing." I cried at that too, for the record. But not everyone's response was like hers. Some people found it and the reaction was complicated, a little odd, a little uncomfortable, a little competitive in ways I hadn't anticipated. Intimacy, it turns out, is a strange coincidence. Growth is not linear, and the valley in the middle is deep. There was a period in month 3 where I genuinely thought the first video had been a fluke, and everything that came after it was the universe slowly correcting a mistake. My subscriber growth slowed. A video I thought was my best work got half the views of one I'd thrown together in 2 hours. I almost quit. I am not saying that for drama. I genuinely sat with that decision for about a week. I kept going because by that point, I had an email folder full of messages from people saying the channel had helped them, and deleting the channel felt like something I would have to explain to all of them, and I couldn't figure out how to do that. Part 7. The apartment I got to leave. Here's the part of the story that I think about the most. When I think about what the money actually meant, it wasn't the number. The number was wonderful, don't misunderstand me. I'm not going to pretend that $10,000 is transformative life money when you look at it in the abstract. It's not a house, it's not retirement, it's not the end of financial anxiety forever. But it was enough to do the thing I had been quietly, desperately wanting to do for almost a year. Leave. I gave Stacy my notice in May. She was fine about it. Stacy was always fine about things in the official way, while the sticky notes told a different story. And indeed, there appeared a new sticky note in my last week that read, "Hope your new place has better internet," which I chose to interpret as warmly as possible. I found my apartment in a neighborhood I had driven through exactly once and immediately loved, with the irrational certainty of someone recognizing a place they haven't been to yet. It was a one-bedroom on the third floor of a building with actual sunlight in the windows and floors that didn't creak at exactly the wrong moment, and a landlord who, when I asked about the building's maintenance history, pulled out an actual binder. An organized binder, with dates in it. I almost proposed to her on the spot. The apartment cost more than I had been paying. I knew I could cover it because the channel was still growing. By the time I moved, I had 42,000 subscribers, and my monthly income had stabilized above what I'd been making at the retail job, which I had also left, politely and with 2 weeks' notice, and a small private celebration that involved a glass of wine and putting on Taylor Swift at a volume that was probably unreasonable for a weeknight.
The first night in my new apartment, I slept on an air mattress because my actual bed hadn't been delivered yet, and I woke up at 3 a.m, that old creative panic witching hour, and instead of the familiar dread I'd spent 2 years waking up to, I felt something I can only describe as quiet. Just quiet. The specific quiet of a space that is yours and only yours and doesn't carry anyone else's noise in it. I filmed a video about moving in, not a moving vlog, not the aesthetic kind with the little boxes labeled in perfect handwriting and the plants arranged just so. Just me, on the air mattress, in a mostly empty apartment, talking about what it had taken to get there. That video is the one I'm proudest of. It's the one people most often quote back to me. Someone once told me they watched it on the worst day they'd had in years, and that it made them feel like things could actually change. I don't know what to do with that except be grateful. Part 8. What I know now that I didn't know then. If 23-year-old Emma, with her flickering ring light and her 7 abandoned channels, could somehow call me up and ask me what the secret was, here is what I would tell her. The niche wasn't the problem. I spent years trying to find a right niche. Food, plants, study content, true crime, finance. As if the correct container would make the content magic. The actual magic was never about the container. It was about whether I was really in it. You can fake a lot of things in content creation. You cannot sustainably fake being present. People know. The thing you most don't want to talk about is probably the thing. The channel that worked was the one where I talked about the things I was embarrassed about, the things that made me feel vulnerable and slightly stupid. Not because vulnerability is a content strategy. I hate when it's described that way, like it's a technique, but because the thing you most don't want to say out loud is usually the thing that's most universally true. When I talked about feeling laughed at for wanting something, I was talking about myself, but I was also apparently talking about hundreds of thousands of other people. Protect your energy before you protect your metrics. The environment you're in when you're making creative work matters enormously. I could not make the thing that worked while I was living in an environment that was quietly, consistently telling me I was foolish for trying. That's not a comforting insight if you can't immediately change your environment, I know, but I think it's true. Some soil just doesn't support certain growth, and that's not a failure of the seed.
Consistency is real, but consistency doesn't mean relentlessness. I've seen creators burn out because they've treated the algorithm like a god that demands daily sacrifice. I posted once or twice a week, sometimes less, and I did not post when I had nothing real to say. The videos that felt forced never performed as well as the ones I made because I couldn't not make them. The money is a result, not a goal. I know that sounds like something you'd find on an inspirational poster in a dentist's office, but I mean it very literally. The month I started trying to optimize for income, thinking about monetization strategy, CPMs, the right video length for AdSense, my content got worse. Measurably, noticeably worse. The month I went back to just making things I meant, the numbers went back up. The money followed the meaning. That's been the most consistent truth of this whole experiment. Part 9. The life I'm living now. I want to tell you about my apartment because I love it in a way that is probably excessive for a one-bedroom rental in Columbus, Ohio, but that I refuse to be embarrassed about. There is a window above my desk that faces east, which means I get morning light while I'm filming, and I have not needed a ring light in 6 months. I have plants, real ones, actual thriving ones, not sad little succulents dying on a windowsill. Hector the succulent from the Minimalist Channel era is there too, of course. He has earned his place. I have a proper studio corner now. A decent microphone, a camera that didn't require a payment plan, a very good chair, which I'm telling you about because nobody ever talks about how much your life improves when you get a genuinely good chair. I have 89,000 subscribers as of this writing. I have a community of people I've never met who feel somehow like people I know.
people who email me when they leave their own bad situation, people who credit a video with helping them make a scary decision, people who send me photos of their own Hectors. I still have bad weeks. I still have videos that don't perform the way I hoped. I still occasionally get a comment that makes me want to close my laptop and take up a quiet life of dairy farming in a place with no Wi-Fi. I still have mornings when the creative block is so thick it feels physical, like a wall between me and the work I want to do.
Epilogue. A note to Derek. Derek, if you somehow find this, and statistically speaking, given that this story has been read by quite a lot of people, you may. But I also have this. I wake up in the morning in my apartment, in my sunlight, and I make things. I make them because I want to. I make them because they are mine. I make them for the person I used to be, crying on the floor of a smelly apartment, being quietly told she was foolish for wanting a different life, and for every version of that person who is still out there, still in the middle of it, still on Channel 3 or Channel 5 or Channel 7, still not yet at the thing that works. The thing that works exists. I promise you. It just might not be the thing you planned. I want you to know something. When you said I had a good personality for someone who clearly doesn't know what they're doing, I laughed. I told you I thought that was funny. I told a few people afterward that it was just Derek being Derek. But I also went home that night and sat on the floor of the mold apartment and thought very seriously about whether you were right, whether all of it was foolish, whether I should call my mother back about the dental office receptionist position and just make peace with a life that had nothing in it that was mine. I'm glad I didn't call her back that night. I'm glad I didn't believe you. That's it. That's the whole note. Emma.